Hi, Diane.
Hi.
I'm not sure what happened there because I was with Juliana speaking in the meeting, and yeah, I mean, so it seemed to be working for some people, but not for others.
Did Juliana leave?
Yeah, well, I ended the meeting and started it again, so hopefully she can sign back in again.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right. I have to close a couple windows, Andrew. It's really
sure.
raining hard here.
Go ahead. Weird.
I do have a suspicion though about what happened, and I'm just going to look at it. It could have, okay, let's see here. Okay, join Zoom. This is recurring meeting anytime. Yeah,
So Juliana, she's back again.
oh, good. Okay, I'll come back.
All right, perfect. So I'm not sure if I think Catherine should be joining us, and possibly Joanna, but I'm not certain. So we'll just give them a minute or so to join. How did you enjoy Andrea's yoga class yesterday, Dan?
I liked it a lot. I've taken a few of her classes, and it's starting to feel more natural.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the breathing, along with the movement in yoga, which I need to work on. Period. I can't do it in English very well, so.
Good, excellent. But are you finding that you can follow along more or less without any problems now?
Yeah, I can. I wondered. I want to ask, what's the difference between profundo and hondo?
I don't really think there are any differences. They're just synonyms. And I think that they're both what you would use for the verb respirar. Respiramos profundo, respiramos hondo. But obviously, profundo as a verb, profundizar, can be used a little bit differently. You know, hondo isn't a verb and can't be used as a verb. So I suppose if there's some kind of difference, it would be there.
There must be some subtle difference because Andrea uses them in one sentence. So she uses both of them in one sentence. So there must be some little difference.
I mean, I guess. I mean, whenever I've asked teachers that they've not been able to explain to me what that difference is. I mean, I think that respiramos profundo y hondo, maybe it's just to give emphasis to the idea, you know, saying the same things two ways. Well, let's have a little look in the dictionary online and see if they can give us any clear answers on that.
Maybe it's just un dicho that people say.
Could be. Yeah, it certainly could be. Yeah, hondo is deep. It can be used for a river. It can mean profound. It's used often of breathing as an adverb. Yeah, it can be used as a noun to mean in the depths, el hondo del mar. And profundo, yeah, it just means, again, deep, profound. And that's it, basically. So, yeah, I can't really see any major difference there, to be honest. All right.
Here's Catherine. There she is.
It's fine. My brother's wife had a baby just like 3 hours ago. So
goodness me! Congratulations to her and your brother, of course.
Yeah, things have been a little crazy.
Yeah, I imagine. Wow, that's fantastic. And I imagine that you're all feeling pretty wiped out now.
Well, she was only 33 weeks, so it was very
surprising.
Yeah, that she had the baby so fast. So we're all grateful that the baby's super healthy. I think everyone's sort of just breathing, like, because she went to the hospital yesterday. So happy to hear the baby is healthy and here.
Yeah.
How's everyone else doing? I know.
I'm
Right?
not feeling
This is
so...
one of the good news in the rest of the crazy world.
Indeed.
Catherine and Juliana. Juliana, you're in New York, right?
I'm in Seattle.
Seattle. Okay. And Catherine, where are you?
I'm in New York, but I'm on Long Island, so I'm not impacted by anything really. Yeah, but Diane, poor you. You're in the thick of it.
Oh, I mean, it's not really for me. It's not fun. I just feel terrible about the whole thing. I mean, it's awful.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's been crazy how it's, I think, just sort of captured everyone's imagination and attention this time round in a way that it hasn't in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully something good can come of it in the long run.
Totally.
So I'm not feeling 100% today. I've had something in my stomach all day, so we'll just have to see how we go. But I'm going to be a little bit more low key than I am sometimes. I'm feeling a little bit sort of wiped out. So anyway, what I wanted to do with class today is give ourselves, we've had a few days just to reset, to put the Spanish aside. So I'd like us to take a few minutes just to kind of get back on top of our vocabulary again, especially useful words for parts of the body. We can also look at just some kind of useful vocabulary that we might use in asana as well. So words like posture, counter posture, breath, depth, opening, these kinds of words as well. So you're going to help me. Let me share my screen here. So here we've got our little diagram of the human body. And I want you to specifically focus on words that were kind of new for you last time. Words that you've learned that you didn't necessarily know before. So let's start with Juliana. What was one of the words that you feel you learned last time, over the last couple of weeks?
Unfortunately, I didn't know this word, but coronilla.
La coronilla. So that's the crown of your head, yeah. And what verb do we often use with coronilla?
What verb do we use with la coronilla? Lean forward.
So I saw you making length. It's kind of growing upwards. So I think that's good. So can anybody help Juliana out here? What verbs might you use for sort of lengthening, growing upwards?
Alargamos.
Yeah. So alargar. Mm-hmm. What else?
Elevar.
Hemos. Oh.
One more time.
Elevar.
Elevar. Good. Maybe extender. Extendemos la coronilla hacia el cielo. Elevamos la coronilla. Alargamos la coronilla. Good. Well done. Okay, Catherine, what were some of the new words that you learned last time round?
So many. Los costados.
Los costados, yeah, because it's,
Masculine.
of course, masculine. And what is your costado?
Side body.
Good. Diane.
So these are the muscles. And
Okay.
I don't even remember how to say it right, but isquiales, and that's not right.
So
Isquiales?
isquio refers to the ischium, which is that bottom bone in your pelvis, which has the sit bones, the ischial tuberosities. And then you've got to think about the bone that the hamstrings attach into on the lower leg, which is the tibia. So they're isquiotibiales. Yeah?
Yep, that's it. Absolutely. Isquiotibiales. There's a few other isquios that I...
Yeah. So the sit bones are called los isquiones.
Isquiones. Yes, that would be another one for me too.
Good, yeah. So why don't we put some bone names down today as well? So la tibia is one of your bones down there. Good.
My favorite bone? Can I share my favorite bone with everybody? Peroné.
El peroné. Where is that?
It's the little bone in the leg.
Yeah.
It's the fibula. I like it because it's not a cognate.
Indeed, it's one of the few bones that's actually really different. There's a lovely band, actually, a Colombian band that I highly recommend everybody check up on Spotify called Monsieur Periné. I think they're from here anyway, or they're from somewhere around Colombia. So Monsieur Peroné.
Will you write that, please?
Yeah. So if you just, take away the L, it's like this. Monsieur Peroné.
Okay, thank you. I need that.
One of Tanya's favorites. So El Peroné. Good. Okay. Back to you, Juliana. What was one of the other words that you learned last month?
Los antebrazos.
Good. Los antebrazos. Good. So your forearms. Very nice. Catherine?
So many. El talón.
Nice. El talón.
So I actually taught my friend on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I taught him in Spanish. And it was funny because like he didn't necessarily know all the words either. But I felt like I didn't know how to say something for sitting on your bottom. Like, you know how you might say that? Like, come sit on your bottom on the mat or something like that. I knew how to say glutes.
Mm-hmm.
But is there a word for that they use for like your butt, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I think quite a lot of people would use the word isquiones at that point. Nos sentamos sobre los isquiones, like sit over your sit bones. Or, I mean, I think people would just say something along the lines of adoptamos una postura sentada
Like the seated
con
position.
las piernas cruzadas.
Okay, helpful.
And that way, you can get across that idea of, I mean, I don't think there's any other way to sit down with your legs crossed. So yeah. O nos sentamos sobre los isquiones. Okay, good. Dan, what was one of the other words that you learned last night?
I might have to go running out of here. Can you hear this?
Yeah, I can hear that.
Very loud. Well, I remember when I told you what waist meant, I told you belt. So belt is, cintura is waist. It's just, that's an error that I think I made. I think I've been walking along thinking waist and belt were the same word. Kind of like muñeca means your wrist and a doll.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that you set me straight on that one.
Yeah, so cinturón is it's used as a belt. I don't think I've ever seen it being used as your waist. Cintura.
Oh, I think I just invented that. I do that sometimes.
It's okay.
Cinturón.
That's
Cinturón
belt.
is a belt. Yeah.
Cool. Cinturón.
Good. Okay. So let's do one more round then. So Juliana, what was one more word that you learned last time?
Los muslos.
Muslos. What would your muslos be?
Your thighs.
Very good. Okay, and Catherine?
Los omoplatos.
Good. So does that have an H or no?
No, omoplatos.
Good. Excellent. Correct answer. Yeah, so los omoplatos has a tilde, an accent on the O there. Otherwise it would be omoplatos, but it's omoplatos. Good. Okay.
Are those your underarms? I don't remember.
Those are your shoulder blades. So what other word could we use for those?
Clavicales.
Ooh, not quite. Your clavicula is your collarbone. So it's las Escápulas.
Escápulas.
So let's start expanding some of our range of knowledge of some of the bones. So Diane just said las clavículas. So those would be your collarbones, right? Again, it's got an accent, a tilde on the I, clavículas. Yeah?
Clavícula.
And what do we call, so we've got our collarbones come in, and then we've got this hard, bony sort of, I don't know, plate, as it were, in the center of our rib cage. What do we call that in English?
Your sternum.
Good. So el esternón is your sternum in Spanish. Good. And one other thing that might be quite useful to learn is your solar plexus. So that's something found in the pit of the stomach at the front of the aorta, which is part of the nervous system. But we quite often talk about our solar plexus and moving it in yoga, right? So it can be useful to know the word for that as well. And it's el plexo solar. Excellent. Okay. So, what bones do you have in your arm? In English. There's three of them, or
Go
three.
back to Google.
No, I
What's
have a,
that?
excuse me while I grab my yoga anatomy book. And
I'm Googling it.
Cheating. So, your humerus is one.
Húmero.
Exactly, yeah. So, el húmero, and again, that's got an accent on the U. El húmero is
El húmero.
for the upper arm. Good. What about the two bones in your lower arm?
Radius.
Yeah. La,
Good. Radio.
el radio and la ulna. Good. So it's kind of interesting when you pronate and supinate your hand, the bones of your forearm actually cross over one another, like so. Because if you have a look at the elbow joint, it actually stays fixed in place. And the way that you can create that movement is by the two bones basically crossing over one another, like so.
Humerus.
Good, okay. So we've got the sternum, solar plexus, humerus, radius, ulna. In the lower leg, we've got the tibia and peroné, but we're missing the bone for the upper leg. What would that be? In English, if you don't know the Spanish.
That's another cognate, though. Femur.
Yeah. So your femur bone is femur. Yeah, in Spanish, el femur. Again, it's got an accent on the E there to show you where the stress goes. And I remember last time as well, we had several names for the knee. So what can we call the kneecap?
Rotula.
Good. So we've got a couple of different words that we can use here. So la rótula, with again an accent on the O, is one of them. So la rótula. Good. What else? This one's a bit closer to an English word.
But rotula.
La patela. So another bone that you might find quite commonly referred to, I mean, I hear it all the time to be used in place of the words for toes. What do you think, what bones do we have, in fact, in our foot, in our toes?
Is it something with the phalange?
So your phalanges, yes, are definitely a part. So okay, let me clarify, sorry. The bones that run along the top of your foot up as far as the beginning of the toe. Sorry, I should have been a little bit clearer with that. Because yes, your toes themselves are the phalanges.
Metatarsal? That's English though. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, this is
And again,
really
it's
bad.
another cognate in Spanish, so it's los metatarsos. So look out for that word in Andrea's practices. You might be surprised that you hear it quite a lot, los metatarsos.
Sos, not a
How
L.
did she use that?
Metatarsos.
Metatarsal.
How did she use that in practice?
Okay.
Oh, sorry. How does she use that in her practice?
How do they use metatarsos? Quite often, I think, when they're talking about like activating the arch of the foot, I'm not entirely 100% sure. I just remember having heard it a lot. And that's why I say, look out for that word and see how it's used. See how people use the word metatarsos. Yeah.
Well, I like in yoga, like I like to do a lot of yoga footwork
Mm-hmm.
and do like walk on the insides of your feet and then walk on the outsides of your feet.
Okay.
So that would be a good time to use that word, right?
I suppose you could, yeah. I mean, so the verb to walk, caminamos, and then I would say on. I probably use the word sobre, caminamos sobre. But honestly, to make life easier for yourself, I would say la parte interior, la parte exterior, or la cara interior, la cara exterior del pie. I think that would probably be the easiest way of dealing with that.
Oh, Kitty, stop it.
So we've had a look at some bones. What about popping some muscles in there? What muscles do you commonly use in English?
You want to get go.
How about you, Catherine? Do you ever use muscle names in English?
I think sometimes I might say triceps, right? So if you're in chaturanga.
So los triceps. And if we've done the triceps, we might as well do the
Biceps.
biceps, los biceps. Good. So triceps and biceps, those are good ones for your upper arm. What about above the upper arm on the shoulder? What muscles do you have here up on your shoulder?
Deltoid.
Exactly. So again, it sounds the same in Spanish, los deltoides. Wait. For some reason that's auto-correcting me. I'll just check that I've got the spelling correct. So deltoides. I have, it's just auto-correct. Loves to change. Okay. Very good. What about on your chest? What muscles do you have on your chest that might be useful? Juliana, what are the main muscles in the front of your chest?
Muscles? Pectoralis, or what is it called?
Exactly, los pectorales.
Pectoralis.
Good. Okay. What about the muscles on, just a couple more that are quite useful, the muscles on your abdomen?
Oh, yeah.
Your abdomen. Your rectus abdomen. Is that the thing?
Yeah, so I think the easiest way is to say los abdominales, right? I mean, you have got like 4 different layers to your abdominal muscles, right? So you've got the rectus abdominis, the transverse abdominis, the interior and the exterior, what do you call them? The word's escaping me now. Those cross-shaped muscles that you work by doing the sort of the crossways crunches. What are they called?
Yeah, I know.
Your rib? Oh, not your ribs.
It'll come to
Did
me
you-
later on.
I mean, if you're oblique, but
You have obliques, yeah, there's the internal and external obliques. So los abdominales is just a general term that you can use for all of your abdominal muscles.
You know how do we say obliques in Spanish? I think that's a cognate too.
Yeah, I think it's los oblicuos. I think it's spelled, let me just check that up.
I feel like that's a muscle I hear a lot with core and obliques.
Yeah.
I feel
Of
like
course, it's with a C in Spanish. C-U-O-S, los oblicuos. Good, okay. All right, excellent. So that will do us for now, I think. Now, what I wanted us to do today was to also add in just some useful words for commonly used nouns, yeah? So things like posture, counter posture, breath, in breath, out breath. So what are some, well, let's just start with those ones, you know, seems to make sense. So what's the word for a posture?
Postura.
Una postura. And a counter posture.
postura.
Yeah, una contrapostura. So that's reasonably straightforward. Posture, a pose, counterpose, una postura, una contrapostura. Good. The word for the breath.
Respiración.
La respiración. In breath.
Inhalación.
And out breath.
Exhalación.
Beautiful. Okay. So what about words like depth? So depth in a posture. So what verb do we often use for to deepen in a pose?
Deep.
Or in English, what's a synonym for deep? If we say, oh, that's really deep, that's really
Profound.
profound.
So can we
Profundamente.
So profundamente is the adverb, which means profoundly or deeply. So the noun, depth, profundidad.
Can we use profundizar to talk about physical and not physical, like thoughts?
Correct. Yeah. So you could say profundizamos en la postura, or you could say profundizamos en este tema.
Okay.
Profundizamos en nuestros estudios de filosofía, for example.
That's what I've learned not to take for granted unless I ask if it can be used both ways. Because I've said some very silly things thinking that worked out, but I'm glad it doesn't.
Yeah, it's all part and parcel of learning a language, is saying silly things, no? So what about words for space in a posture?
Espacio.
Espacio. So buscamos más espacio en la postura. Good, excellent. Okay. What other words in English do you think might be useful? Other nouns that might typically be useful to add? Words that you really typically use in your English teaching.
La pared.
Yeah, so I mean, thinking less about sort of parts of the yoga studio, but more things like, more words that help you maybe guide asana specifically.
This is why I need a yoga teacher.
This isn't maybe asana, but I think I heard Andrea use ama, right, which is soul.
Ooh, el alma.
El alma, yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice word, the soul.
Then we can make the leap to corazón.
El corazón. Yeah, why not?
I think
Yeah.
I heard, did we go over this here? Or maybe she said it, like your state of mind. There was one really nice phrase she had where she said, like, cultivate a state of peace. And I thought that phrase of like state of, is that something that's commonly used?
So cultivar un estado de paz, de mente,
Yeah.
de amplitud, de bondad. Yeah, and there are many different things that you could say there.
I like cultivar in this situation, though. That's nice.
Good. Okay. Well, we'll leave that there for now. So let's start class today by thinking about how we can create some language for Sukhasana and Dandasana. So what we're going to be chatting about a little bit in class today is guiding a warm-up, right? And so most warm-ups are done from these postures. Or we could maybe start on the back as well. Okay, so in English, how would you bring people into Sukhasana? Juliana, what would you say to people if you wanted them to come into Sukhasana?
Like at the beginning of class,
Exactly.
let's all start in a seated position.
Perfect. So what's the verb for to start?
For what? For which word?
To start. What verb can we use in Spanish for to start?
Empezamos.
Good. Empezamos. Good. And then the word for a comfortable position is una postura cómoda, with an accent there. Good. And we can describe a little bit more about what that posture looks like. So, Catherine, how would you describe Sukhasana to people?
Okay, I would say, what would we say before? Una postura sentada con las piernas cruzadas.
Good. Con las piernas cruzadas. Excellent. Okay. So what other aspects are we often looking for from our seated cross-legged position?
You want that.
Yeah.
Oh,
You
yeah.
want to tuck your glutes.
Yeah. Activate core, open your shoulder, your chest, relax your shoulder blades.
Great. So let's pop some of these ideas down then. So first of all, what verb do we often use to bring the glutes out from underneath?
Sacamos.
Good. Sacamos.
What does that mean exactly?
Sacar is to take something out. Yeah. So you could use it for like your dog. Sacamos el perro. You could do it for the trash. Sacamos la basura. You can also use it for kind of pulling it out from underneath something from something else. So, saca esto de ahí. Like, take that out from under there. So, yeah, sacamos los glúteos. It's something I often kind of find hard when I'm translating actually from Spanish into English. And I end up saying, let's take out the glutes. And I'm like, no, that doesn't sound like all in English. Let's remove our glutes. No, that sounds even worse.
I mean, like separamos is like what I would say in English. Separate.
Separamos los glúteos. Yeah, why not?
That's why I was like, sacamos. That sounds funny. Okay.
A non-yoga related aside, saquear, un saqueo is looting.
Yeah, that's indeed. That's not something we want associated with glutes ever.
No, not at all, but I
That's relatable.
What's that, sorry?
She said looting. I said that's relatable.
Indeed. So, sacamos los glúteos or separamos los glúteos. One other thing that you might like to say to people is how to get them sitting on top of something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So quite often I like to say empezamos en una postura cómoda sobre un bloque o bolster.
So my yoga teachers always tell me they're communicating the idea of tilting the pelvis. That's why we sit on a blanket or a block. Do we say anything like that?
I mean, you can do if you want to. Again, if you want to help students generate an awareness of their body and how it moves, then that might be a good thing. But again, the thing is, in Spanish, you risk kind of tying yourself up in knots with a lot of words. So the verb for to tilt is inclinar, right? So inclinamos la pelvis hacia adelante. And what that does is y creamos curvatura en la zona lumbar, right? So it's allowing us to create this curvature, this lordosis, as it's called anatomically, in the lumbar region.
Okay, I'm confused. We're creating a curve in the lumbar. I thought we were, where's the curve? When I tilt my pelvis forward, I thought that makes my back nice and straight.
Exactly the opposite. So the back should almost never, ever, 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 ever be straight. If you have a totally straight column, you have serious medical issues. I know somebody here in Medellin who's got, literally, if you hung a spine off a plumb line, his back is like that, and it's extremely painful. So with the spine has 5 curves. The inward curve is called lordosis, like you've got in your lower back. And then the outward curves are kyphoses, right? So, 4 curves. So you've got a kyphosis in your thoracic spine, and you've also got a kyphosis in your sacrum and coccyx, right? So really what you want to be doing in yoga practice is creating a natural curvature in the spine. So in most postures, you always want to guarantee some kind of natural curvature, right? So although we use the phrase straight spine a lot in yoga, we don't really mean a totally straight spine, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So what we're trying to do when we rotate the pelvis forward, what's the problem if people have very short hamstrings and tight hips, is that their knees are raised up off the floor, their pelvis is tucked underneath, and they can't create that natural curvature in their lower spine. So when they sit on top of something, it gives their pelvis more space to tilt forwards, which is the anterior pelvic tilt, right? Which creates a natural space in the lower back. Does that make sense?
I can't hear you, Andrew.
Can anybody hear me, or am I speaking to myself?
No, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Oh, I could hear you.
Okay, great.
Is that what, like, sometimes you might say, like, if you have tight hamstrings, you might want to sit on a block to get your hips above your knees. So it's kind of a different way of saying the same thing.
Exactly, yeah. So creamos curvatura en la zona lumbar. So you always want there to be, and it should never be exaggerated, it should always be a natural curvature, but it should be there.
Okay.
Okay. Right, so sacamos los glúteos, separamos los glúteos. What were the other things, Catherine, that you were saying in your seated posture that you were looking for?
Sure. I might tell people to relax their shoulders.
Great.
Shoulders from their ears.
Yeah. And so what's maybe a really effective way to guide that? Because I find that sometimes, relax your shoulders. They just kind of slump, right?
I've been saying juntamos los omoplatos.
Good. Juntamos los. And what might you do if someone isn't very familiar with their anatomy to actually guide them to do that if they don't know how?
Oh, is that where, like your shoulders up and back? Is that what?
Yeah, so I would say rotamos los hombros hacia las orejas.
Mm-hmm.
Hacia atrás y abajo. Or if they know how to do that, just juntamos los omoplatos.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Okay.
I think there's probably a lot of time when people don't know what these words mean. So if the
More
people
simple.
don't know what they are, how do you do that as yoga teachers? How do you explain? I know how I've been taught in certain situations, but I'm wondering how you all do it.
So, Juliana and Catherine, do you have any opinions on that?
I think just you can say both words. Like if you say like, I think I've heard Andrea do it in her videos where she uses like multiple of the same word just so people can understand what she's saying.
So, yeah, definitely. Go ahead, Catherine. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think it's also stylistic. Some teachers want to be sort of technical, right? And others want to cue smaller movements that get people where they are. It's also much easier when you can see your class and see, did people understand me or not? And then if you feel like you have to re-explain, you might, to Juliana's point, like try another way to say it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that my teacher spoke really well on this when he said, by all means be technical, use technical vocabulary and so on, but you have to demonstrate at least once per class what you mean by that. So, if you're talking about the way that the head of the humerus fits into the glenoid fossa, you can't just throw that out there and expect people to understand it. You need to say, the head of the humerus, which is the bone in the upper arm, fits into the shoulder joint, which we call the glenoid fossa. And then you can go back and talk about that a little bit more, right? And it's the same with Sanskrit as well. I mean, by all the means, toss Sanskrit words out there, but you might want to just say, just in blank, my mind has gone blank there for a moment. The posture, the Trikonasana, which is triangle pose, for example. So we are educators at the end of the day, right? So it's our duty to share a lot of these ideas, but often the first time round, people might not know how to join their shoulder blades. So you might want to say, let's lift the shoulders towards the ears, roll them down and back, and notice how that joins your shoulder blades. And from that point onwards, you can say to people, join your shoulder blades. Okay, good. So what other things might we want to say just to finish off in our Sukhasana, our seated pose?
Maybe rest your palms on your...
Should we?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, with your rest your hands on your knees with your palms facing up.
Great. So descansamos.
Mudra or something.
Hi.
Joanna, how are you?
Good. I don't know what happened, but I couldn't get connected.
Everybody had connection issues today. It wasn't just you. Everybody did.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
But you're here now.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Thank
We're
you.
just going over, we did a little bit of brainstorming for some new vocabulary for the body, for bones, for muscles. And we're having a look at guiding a warm-up right now. So we're getting people seated in Sukhasana. We're getting people seated in Dandasana. So Catherine just said, let's rest our palms, las palmas, sobre las rodillas. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so that was Sukhasana. We might also want to, let's focus on a warm-up in Sukhasana for today. Okay, so what are some typical warm-up movements that you do, Joanna, with your students in class in a seated position?
Oh, in a seated position. I like to do a little bit of like a gentle neck traction. Mm-hmm. So first I start with like a rotation, like little head circles, abdominal circles, and then I'll just, place your forearm down, reach your right arm up, relax your neck, feel a nice lateral stretch, and then gentle neck traction. Perfect. On both sides. And then also working with the breath.
Excellent. So circles are a really nice warm up for any joint. I think it helps us sort of warm up the fluids in the joints that are nicely lubricated. So Does anybody know the phrase in Spanish? It's pretty straightforward. To make circles.
Círculos.
Good. Hacer círculos. Con. And so there you can specify the part of the body. Hacemos círculos con la cabeza. Rotamos. So there's another verb. Rotamos. And then you could specify the direction. Hacia la derecha. Hacia la izquierda. Good. Okay. And you could even say, hacemos círculos con el torso, right? Para calentar
Cuerpo.
el cuerpo, la columna, las caderas. So, hacemos círculos con el torso para calentar, and then again, you can specify the area that you want to warm up. Beautiful, well done. What about if again, you were talking about tractioning the neck to one side or the other, what verb would people use, Juliana or Catherine, in English when you're teaching? How do you say that movement?
Lean your head.
Lean the head? Okay, why not? Diane, what would be the word in Spanish for to lean?
Inclinar.
Good, inclinar. So that's one option. What other way might you phrase that?
Stretch.
So, yes, stretch, estirar. Anything else?
Extend.
Extender, very nice. How about descender? What does that mean?
To lower.
Yeah, so you might say it's like a synonym of bajar, right? So you might say descendemos la oreja izquierda hacia el hombro. Yeah, so lower your left ear towards the shoulder. And at that point, we could bring in our introspective language, right? Y, what were the introspective words that we used for notice, observe, feel?
Observe la sensación del cuello.
Good. Notamos, observamos, o sentimos. And so what are we going to feel if we've lowered the left ear towards the shoulder and note, observe, or feel? What object are we going to pop into that sentence?
You might say feel like the stretch in your neck.
Nice.
Feel the tension leaving your neck, something like that.
Yeah, good. So Diane, how would you say, what's the word for stretch?
Estirar.
So estirar is the verb. What about a noun?
Estiramos el cuello. Estiramos los músculos del cuello.
So let's look for a noun because we need an object, right, for let's feel. So in English, you would say, let's feel the stretch. So in Spanish, it's sentimos el estiramiento.
Estiramiento is the stretch. Okay.
Exactly. So feel, sentimos, notamos el estiramiento, ¿ya? En el cuello. Perfect. All right, nice. So we've dealt with this stretch of the sides of the neck. We've dealt with making circles with different parts of the body. It could be the neck, could be the shoulders, it could be the torso, the hips. So we've got plenty of vocabulary there. Juliana, you're doing a warm-up. What else do you tend to pop into your warm-ups?
Breath work.
Okay, let's leave breathing for now. Let's just think about movement exercises just so that we can kind of keep things centered on one topic.
So we inhale, lift our arms up, and then extend one arm behind you and one arm in front.
Yeah, so how can we say in Spanish to do a twist?
Twist.
Girar or girar el cuerpo. Girar.
Yeah. So there's a verb girar. And if we wanted to be a bit more specific, and as I say, to literally translate to do a twist, it would be hacer una torsión.
Torsión.
Yeah? So vamos a hacer una torsión, yeah, con el pecho. We're going to make a twist with the chest, to do a twist with the chest. Good. Hacemos una torsión o giramos el torso. Very good. What other verbs might be really useful for that kind of position that Juliana was talking about with the arms?
Alargamos o estiramos los.
Yeah, so estirar might be useful. What else?
Expanding the chest, maybe?
Expandir, yeah, why not?
Lift yourself up. Extend your
Oh.
spine up.
Abrir as well. Abrimos los brazos en una cruz, yeah, in a cross shape.
Where's the cross shape?
So, see me.
The body.
So it's like when we're opening our arms like this.
Oh, I get it. I was thinking crossing the arms. Okay.
It's a very Catholic country here. They're always thinking about Jesus Christ. Good. Okay, so abrimos los brazos en una cruz. Abrimos el pecho, expandimos el pecho, estiramos todo el cuerpo. Good. So tons of stuff there that we could say. Nice. Okay. Catherine, what else do you say in your warm-ups? We've done a twist. We've done some circles. What else is missing?
Sometimes I might do a forward fold. So whether I'm just like folding my arms out or tenting my arms and getting like a little rounding of the back.
So it depends if we're going into a forward fold with an extended spine or a flexed spine, right? Yeah. So again, because people don't often know, oh, flex your spine. Well, what does that mean? How does that mean that I move my back? Is there a verb or a really easy way to get people to kind of round forwards, do you reckon?
Well, I might say round your spine, round your back.
Yeah.
But
you not doblamos, not fold forward.
I would.
You say like roll
or arch.
So I'll answer those questions one by one. In terms of doblar, is generally not something I'm going to be using in the very beginning of my warm-up because a lot of people don't yet have a warm enough body to be doblándose, if that makes sense. Because doblar, to me, implies this like tight kind of fold. So I would quite often lead with a word like relajamos la cabeza hacia el suelo. Y redondeamos la columna. Because if you use the word relax, people are going to naturally round their back and their shoulders and everything forwards. I think forward folding with a flat back actually requires this kind of engagement in the core, right? And you're going to need a little bit more vocabulary to get there. So let's help one another out at this point.
Can I ask a question though before we can we use desplomarse or would that be weird? That's only for bridges.
Desplomarse.
Desplomarse. Collapse.
Oh.
Yeah, I think desplomarse sounds to me like yeah, to kind of cave in, fall in, collapse, plummet. It's the kind of thing that I might, if when you say that desplomarse, like what immediately comes to mind is like landslides or building collapses, or that's kind of where I would expect to see those words. So it's a word that is generally used negatively in yoga, I think, that you want to avoid collapsing. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's definitely not a word that I would want to use to cue somebody into a fold. Okay, so Joanna, if you're bringing someone into a seated forward fold, but you want them to do it with like a flat back, what kind of cues are you going to give?
In a flat back, alargamos la columna, inhalamos, alargamos la columna, y
Yeah.
exhalamos.
So I really like how Joanna cued that with a breath, because this kind of in-breath automatically activates a lot of the muscles in our core, right? So inhalamos, alargamos la columna, yeah? How might you go from there?
Exhalamos, nos doblamos hacia adelante.
Good. So I'm going to add another little bit into the mix here. So I'm going to put, before we say nos doblamos hacia adelante, I'm going to say colocamos las manos en copa delante de ti,
Okay.
delante de nosotros. So place the hands, and again, en copa is in this kind of like tented version, right? Delante de nosotros, so place the hands on the fingertips in front of us. Inhale, lengthen the spine. Exhalamos, caminamos las manos hacia adelante. And you're getting them to walk the hands forward, right?
Mhm.
So now hopefully the chest is following, especially if you're kind of guiding them physically, yeah? Now, here, we might use that phrase that we looked at a little bit earlier in class. Inhalamos. Creamos espacio en el torso. Exhalamos. And there we're going to have what Joanna said. Nos doblamos.
I was also thinking, bajamos el pecho hacia la tierra. Because when you said to walk the hands out, your chest comes down, right, towards the mat. Can we say that?
Good. So you can see there that we've got all of this vocabulary that can help us begin to be a little bit more technical in terms of how we guide these warm-ups. So we're not just saying inhale, raise the hands, exhale, fold, because that's what we would have done last week, right? But this week we're thinking a little bit more technically now. How can we get people to make these refinements in their postures? So if we say to them, place the hands, colocamos las manos en copa delante de nosotros, inhalamos, alargamos la columna, exhalamos, caminamos las manos hacia adelante. Inhalamos, creamos espacio en el torso, exhalamos, nos doblamos. Great, no?
Yeah, it sounds great.
Sounds much, much more technical. Yeah. What can we also do in a forward fold? When we're in a seated forward fold. Nice warm-up exercise.
Can you move your hands from one side to the other?
Right. So how might you easily cue that in Spanish?
Caminamos la mano izquierda hacia arriba, la mano derecha.
So I would just say, first of all, caminamos las manos, because we want to walk both of the hands hacia la derecha. And then you could offer an option at this point, right? So you could say something like, y quizás. What does quizás mean?
Perhaps.
Perhaps, maybe, possibly. Queremos colocar una mano sobre la otra. So what does that mean?
Maybe place one hand on top of the other.
Yeah, maybe we want to. Quizás queremos. Yeah, perhaps we want to place one hand on top of the other.
Andrew, should we use subjunctive after quizás, or does that sound funny in yoga? Does this sound much more the way people say it? Quizás queremos.
That's a great question. Let's check that up. I mean, I think that quizás sometimes uses a subjunctive and sometimes not. Let's have a look. So, okay. The rule is you can use both moods. With the indicative, you can say what you think or guess, whereas the subjunctive expresses like a kind of a very potential or virtual idea. Right? So as always, the subjunctive just makes something sound kind of more kind of theoretical and possible. Yeah. So just stick with the regular indicative mood here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sounds more natural. I get confused about quizás and tal vez with subjunctive because it's not what I hear people saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, if you're expressing an opinion, just use the normal form, queremos. Yeah, okay. At this point, again, we can come back to our introspective language, right? What were our introspective words? Juliana, can you remember?
Introspective words. Oh, I feel like my head just went blank.
Right there in the middle of the page. Can you see that?
Okay. Yes. Y notamos,
Eso.
observamos, sentimos.
Notamos. So at this point, we quite often, when we're teaching an English warm-up, right, we draw people's attention to the stretching sensation in the side body. Yeah? So what do you think we can say in Spanish? Y notamos qué cosa?
And notice.
The opening.
Oh.
Yeah, la apertura. Yeah?
What is apertura?
Apertura is opening.
Oh,
It's from the verb abrir. Yeah? So notamos la apertura in where? In which part, Joanna? Where are we noticing our opening? ¿En qué parte del cuerpo?
Side of the body.
Which is in Spanish?
El lado lateral. El torso lateral.
But people would understand, yeah? There's a better word though.
costado.
El costado. Izquierdo, because we've walked the hands to the right, so we're going to feel the stretch on the left side body.
I find the word apertura very, very interesting because I've been walking along thinking it meant like a gaping hole. Opening, like if I would have heard notamos la apertura en el costado, I would have imagined an injury because I didn't know that apertura meant opening, like the way you're using it. So
yeah, so it's often used for joints, right? We open our joints up, which generally means that we're increasing the flexibility. But yeah, apertura is used that way in Spanish for sure. Good, so notamos la apertura, notamos el estiramiento. En el costado izquierdo. Perfect. So far, so good, no? Now, here's a good question for you. You want to bring people back to the center. How many ways can people remember to do that? Catherine, I'm picking on you.
Sure. You can say volvemos.
Volvemos al centro.
I want to learn better transitions. So I think last time we covered something like vamos a hacer like the other side, or like we're going to.
Yeah, vamos al otro lado.
but that after you come into to center, then you go to the other side, right?
Yeah, vamos al otro lado. Or you could say repetimos con el otro lado. Yeah, so repeat with the other side. Okay, so volvemos al centro, regresamos a... What other things can people think to say here? How about the word neutro? What does neutro mean?
Neutral.
Yeah, return to neutral. So again, just that kind of position where you're kind of, we call it the anatomical position in English, and it's what you look like when you're lying down or standing in Tadasana. But in this context, we're just meaning sort of come back towards the center. So vemos al centro, regresamos al neutro. Good. Vamos al otro lado, repetimos con el otro lado. All right. Okay, what comes next? So you've got people, they're still forward folded, right?
Go to the other side.
What are you going to do with them? And let's assume that they've done the other side now. So what are you going to do with people next?
I'll slowly roll back.
Good. So what's a nice word for slowly?
Lentamente.
Lentamente.
Will you use despacio also after lentamente?
I always use despacio. And this is the La Tierra de Despacito. De hecho, no? If anybody remembers that, does anybody remember that song? It seems like long ago now, before all of this craziness when Despacito was in the charts. So lentamente or despacio. Yeah. What can we say at this point?
Slowly lift yourself up or roll yourself up.
How do you say roll up your spine? Como,
Yeah, so that's where, again, they don't have a particular verb for that. So they would say, lentamente subimos vértebra por vértebra.
So
So do you see that they don't have like a specific way in Spanish of saying to kind of roll? The word roll, rodar, is kind of what a wheel does, right? So it doesn't really work for things like a spinal column.
yeah, it doesn't sound right.
I mean, even for doing this, you can't use the verb rodar. You have to use the verb rotar with a T, not with a D. Good. All right. So lentamente subimos vértebra por vértebra. Okay. Great. So we've done a side stretch, a forward fold. We've done a twist. We've done some rolls. What other things might we want to do in our warm-up?
Sometimes I stretch my arms. Like you can cross your fingers and bring your arms up overhead.
Yeah, why not? That's a good thing to help warm up the wrists. So how might you begin to say something like that?
You can extend your arm, extendemos los brazos hacia adelante.
But first, you're going to need to get people to interlace their fingers, right?
Either way, yeah.
So what's the verb for to interlace?
entretejar?
Yeah.
No, you didn't
There's a
say.
better word for it though, here, I think. Entrelazar.
Sometimes I read words and then I use them and then people think it's funny because it's not how people talk.
So entretejer, definitely I've heard it in yoga practice before, but just not in this context. Entretejer in English like means to kind of knit together, right? Because un tejido is like a fabric. So entretejer is to kind of like weave together, knit together. So yeah, entrelazar is better. Entrelazamos los dedos. Y how can we say turn the palms forwards?
Giramos.
Rotar.
Giramos
Mira.
las palmas hacia adelante. Good. And there you can use a verb like to stretch the arms or extend the arms, yeah? Y extendemos los brazos, estiramos los brazos. Good. And then again, just use your simple language. So Joanna, how would you say then, we're here to move into this point? Sorry, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. estiramos los brazos hacia arriba.
Yeah, and again, you might want to do it with an inhalation, right? Because generally when we grow and we lift, we breathe in, and when we round, we breathe out. How can we, in fact, say that? Let's move with the breath.
Inhalamos y estiramos los brazos hacia arriba.
Mm-hmm. And then let's imagine that we've said, exhalamos y extendemos los brazos hacia adelante, y move with your breath.
Y movemos con el estiramiento.
So it's going to have to be a reflexive verb, right?
Conectamos
Move.
Nos movemos, yeah? Let's move ourselves con la respiración.
Oh, I said el estiramiento. Yeah, okay.
la respiración. Could you say conectamos la respiración con el movimiento?
I think you probably could, yeah. Conectamos nuestros movimientos con la respiración. Yeah, I think that works. Nice. Good, I love it. Bit of creativity.
Will you also write that, Andrew, please?
Conectamos nuestros movimientos con la respiración. Good work. Excellent. Okay. For me, there's just one thing missing, yeah? In a spinal warm-up, we generally have an upward stretch, side bend, twist, forward fold, and
Back bend.
back bend. So what kind of back bend can you do in a seated position?
You can do cactus pose.
You could, yeah, definitely.
Cactus your arms.
Leave your hands behind your back.
So how can we, we'll definitely do that, Joanna. How can we talk about cactus arms to begin with? So we've made it into this horrendous verb in English, which is let's cactus our arms. I don't think there's any other discipline in the world that uses cactus as a verb than yoga. So anyway, how can we say that in Spanish? Let's cactus our arms.
Llevamos los brazos a la altura de los hombros y flexionar los antebrazos.
Definitely, or it would be flexionar los codos because you have to talk about the joint when you're using the verb flexionar. So abrimos los brazos, and we could say en la forma de un cactus. Has anyone else noticed that in Latin America they say cactus sometimes with a P instead of a C? I found that very, very curious. Like, and it's not just one person. Quite a lot of people say, "Ay, es un cactus." Very, very odd. Anyway, cactuses. Maybe it's just a mistake.
Isn't it the same thing how you just say la pelvis?
Maybe. No, I don't know. I feel that probably they started saying cactus in Latin America before we started saying it in Europe.
We don't care about la altura de los hombros. That's too much talking, right?
I mean, you can definitely say that. It's just that I've heard people talking about en cactus, en la forma de un cactus. Yeah. So, because it's such a visual and expressive image, I think it's worth using. But I mean, by all means, abrimos los brazos a la altura de los hombros y doblamos o flexionamos los codos. Why not?
Oh, I like the cactus better, definitely. And I'm always trying to flexionar things that don't bend. Like arms. I say flexionar los brazos, but that would be...
You can flexionar los brazos, but you cannot flexionar los antebrazos.
Oh.
Because your arm has a joint, so your arm can flex, but your forearm can't, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Because if your arm has a joint in the middle of it, you can create a movement with your arm, but you can't create a movement with your forearm because there is no joint in the middle of that. Anyway, it's just technicality at the end of the day. So, Juliana, you've got your hands in cactus. How are you going to guide people into a back bend from there?
Inhale, cactus your arms. lift your shoulders up and back, slightly lean back is what I say.
Yeah, so we could definitely say lift the shoulders up, back, and down, and lift the solar plexus or lift the collarbones, right? So, rotamos los hombros. What are the three directions, Catherine?
Hacia arriba,
Mm-hmm.
atrás y abajo.
And is it necessary to repeat hacia every time?
Yes.
Ah, yes, no. No, it's not. I mean, people will understand. If you say rotamos los hombros hacia arriba, atrás y abajo, people will get it. Yeah, that you're kind of repeating that, but you're just leaving it out. Okay. Y subimos what was the word for solar plexus?
El plexus solar.
El plexum solar. And you could even say arqueando la columna. What does that mean?
Arch your lower back.
Not the lower back necessarily, but just the spine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, rotamos los hombros hacia arriba, atrás y abajo, y subimos el plexo solar arqueando la columna. So that's a really nice, complete sentence expressing all of the movements for a back bend. Now, Juliana suggested, Joanna suggested that we did a back bend by placing the hands on the floor. So, Joanna, what cues would you give to people for that version of the pose?
You mean the tilting of the pelvis?
I mean, just the cues in general. If you, let's say we're seated, what are you going to tell people?
With the direction, you mean just placing your hands on the floor?
That's a good place to start. So how would you say that in Spanish?
Colocamos las palmas hacia la colchoneta.
Now, hacia. What's the problem with hacia in this context? So hacia means towards, and you can't really place something towards something else. That just sounds a little bit odd. So it's better just to use the verb, the preposition en. Colocamos las palmas en la colchoneta.
I totally don't understand why that's wrong, but colocamos.
But if I said to you in English, place your hands towards your knees, does that sound to you odd, or would there be a better way of phrasing that?
It sounds funny.
Yeah.
But I totally see me doing that, so I'm glad you're making a big deal out of it with la colchoneta.
That's what I'm here for, is to make a big deal out of people's mistakes. All right. Okay. So place the hands on the mat. Beautiful. Take us on, Joanna.
Inhalamos, subimos el pecho hacia arriba y arqueamos la columna lumbar.
Now, is it necessary to say subimos el pecho hacia arriba?
Well, I guess not if we're just arching our lower back.
I would say subimos el pecho, yeah.
Wait.
And instead of saying hacia arriba, you might use that opportunity to talk about opening maybe the chest or the collarbones. Does that make sense? Because in Spanish, subir hacia arriba sounds kind of redundant, right?
Yes, because I'm saying lift.
Yeah, I mean, I say that because they make fun of Tanya's aunt always for saying that. Like she always says, ay, ¿por qué no lo subimos hacia arriba por ahí? No, lo subimos hacia abajo. Like, let's bring it up downwards. I mean, like, how else can you do that? So, subimos el pecho y abrimos las clavículas.
If you weren't demoing this, where you're placing your hands behind, how would if we were saying colocamos las manos en la colchoneta atrás de, like would you say
Detrás de.
detrás de?
Yeah. Detrás de. Well,
We're-
detrás de what?
Los
Kind of what I was like questioning before, but I'd say, I guess you could say your hips, las caderas, or
Nice. Yeah, that will do nicely. Colocamos las palmas en la colchoneta detrás de las caderas. Inhalamos, subimos el pecho y abrimos las clavículas. And sometimes we even lift the pelvis here, right?
Yeah.
So how might you cue that in Spanish?
Traemos la pelvis.
Hard.
You wouldn't say hacia, right?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean,
Would you?
let's think about this first of all. I might first of all talk about the sit bones. So I might first of all say, subimos los isquiones y traemos la pelvis. What's the direction?
It's going forward.
Yeah, hacia
Adelante.
adelante.
La pelvis adelante. Traemos la pelvis adelante.
Ah, yeah, adelante or hacia adelante.
Ah, okay. So yes.
Hacia adelante. Yeah.
And that's if you want to do that funny version of this pose where you kind of lift the pelvis and stretch it forwards. Awesome. So I reckon with those two slides, we've got a pretty complete warm-up. What's your homework now? Your homework is to convert this all into a text that you can use, okay? At the beginning of next session, we're going to spend around 10 minutes teaching each other, well, 10 minutes per person teaching each other in groups, okay? Because I think it's really, really important this month that we put a strong emphasis on practice time. So as of next session, I always want you to come with some language prepared to class. Please, please, if you feel like it, send me your texts in advance, even if it's just like an hour before class, that's fine. It means that we can actually take a little look at some of the things that people have written. We can tweak some of the language, and then we can go off and teach one another. Does that make sense?
So you
Yeah.
just want us to create like a 10-minute warm-up sequence,
Mhm.
type and then send it to you?
Yeah, so using the language that we've just worked on, so seated warm-up, yeah? A 10-minute seated warm-up, basically.
Okay. And can you send us the screenshots of this?
Absolutely, yeah, the same as always. So I'll also put all of these videos online for anybody, any of those of you who want to go back and watch any of these, and I'll share all the screenshots with you as well.
and we shouldn't do pranayama. Just act like we did that
Pranayama?
in the 10-minute. What we're doing next time for the homework.
So for the homework, I want you to focus on just a seated warm-up.
Right. So assuming we've already warmed up the breath. Okay.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah, it was just a physical warm-up for now. We'll talk about pranayama later on in the month.
Okay.
All right. Well done, everybody. Have a lovely evening, and I will see you all on Thursday.
Thursday. Okay, bye everyone.
Be well and stay safe, everyone.
Bye.
And so on Thursday, I'm gonna be a half hour late. I'm just finishing up a training, so it's like
Sure.
30, like crossing into this one.
No problem. Yeah, as I say, if you ever want to catch up in the first half hour, you'll find the video on YouTube.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. My pleasure.
Good night.
Good night.